So I want to welcome you here tonight on a ridiculously cold evening. I congratulate all of you for coming out. We have a number of people who are going to be chatting about what's happening with the census in general and different aspects of the census. So first, I'm hoping that Laura will come up and introduce herself. She is in charge of partner groups. The League aspires to be a partner with complete count commissions.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Laura Bedola, and I am with the U.S. Census Bureau. I'm a partnership specialist here in Kane County, and I focus on forming partnerships with community organizations or with anyone who wishes to become a partner with the U.S. Census Bureau so that we may have a complete and accurate count. If you have any questions, I'll be right at the table over there. And thank you so much for the invitation. I'm excited to see what Batavia is doing and ready to learn and know a little bit more about all of you. Thank you.
So the plan for tonight is that Siobhan Green, who's on the state board, will give us an overview of what's to come with the census and a few ways that we can get involved. And then we'll invite Joanne and Mo to give details about what's happening locally. And then we're going to put you all to work. So we're going to lock the doors and you can't leave. Trying to sort out exactly what can we do. So, Siobhan.
Hello, my name is Siobhan Green, and I'm with the League of Women Voters of Illinois as one of the census issue specialists. I am also with the LaGrange Area League of Women Voters. That's my local. So thanks for having me out here tonight. I really appreciate the opportunity. A little closer? Okay, thanks. I really appreciate the opportunity to come out and talk about the census because I'm getting really nerdy about this, and so it's fun to have people to share with, to be honest with you. So what I'd like to do is to start with a little bit of who's in the room and what do you know, so that we know what we should spend our time talking about and working on. So if you don't mind, can you, by show of hands, who here is a leaguer? Who's with the league? Okay, thank you. And who here is an elected official? Thank you. And who here is already familiar with what is a CCC and who's on one? Very good. Okay, so we've got a fairly strong baseline of census knowledge in the room, which is awesome because we can take this pretty far then. But just for anybody who's playing at home, apparently, and for anybody else who is new and wants to play catch up, let's do a really, really quick reminder of what you probably learned in grade school about the census. And before we start that part, I want to go ahead and do one more show of hands. Show me your hand if you feel like you have a pretty strong grasp on what's going on with the census now in 2020. We got one. Okay, couple shy more, but good, which means we all feel we have more to learn, which is a great place to start when it comes to attacking this job, right, and doing it together. So a couple of reminders. Why do we do the census? Anybody? Because it's in the Constitution. So it's our job. It's the government's job to follow the Constitution and provide or facilitate or create or make or do or somehow enumerate us, count us, but it's also our job to count ourselves, help our neighbors get counted. So it's kind of, we think of it as a constitutional obligation on the part of the government, but really, since we are a by the people kind of government, then it's really our job. It's everybody's job to participate in the census. And when we come at it with that approach, then we are more likely to get a more full and more accurate count. So we do the census count every 10 years, and lots of people tune into doing the census for different reasons. And recognizing that the buy-in of why would someone make this important in their life, either they get as nerdy as I am, finding every little nugget they can find about this census and what's going on and what's next and how do we do it and how do we work, all of that. Or they're just, I'm going to get a card and I'm going to fill it out and that's the end of that. But there's also lots in between and why it's important and what people value. So give me a couple of reasons of why you or people you know Why do they talk about the census, or what is it that grabs their attention? Anyone?
Need to get sufficient funds to fund important programs.
We need to get sufficient funds to fund important programs. What else? What is another buy-in? Representation in Congress, right? Anybody else? Another buy-in. Reasons why people make this important to themselves or want to make it important, and that's why they. Gerrymandering. Okay. So right now I'm hearing a lot of money and governmental issues, and that is a door you might want to walk through to invite someone into the census. Talk to them about the fact that over the course of 10 years, that's a lot of money we miss every single year that we send to Washington and then don't get back in the form of it comes in the budget to our communities to fund the things that are important to us. So if a fiscal door is the door you need to use to get buy-in from a particular group of people or an individual, you need to know that that's a door, right? For other people, the only thing that they remember about the census is that it's in the Constitution and they like to follow rules. So if it says we're supposed to do it, they're going to fill out their census. And that's the buy-in that they needed. They just might need a little reminder, hey, this is our job. As people who live here, this is our constitutional obligation. It's our right and it's our privilege. So you push that patriotic button with them and they go, oh yeah, this is going to be important to me too. That's the door you walk through to reach some people. For some people, it's that money for hospitals comes oftentimes through federal funding in one form or another. Whether that's, studies that give us better science, that give us better medicine, which gives us better health care, or the actual programs themselves where people's doctor bill gets paid through some sort of a federal program. Their ability to go and seek out medical attention, that's their buy-in. They're hot on health care. Their door you walk through to talk about the census is the health care. For some people, it's the roads and the bridges and the quality of life that you don't have to change your tire every 5 miles because the roads are in good shape, which if you've ever driven through a state that doesn't prioritize making roads and bridges important and you've blown your tire, if you've ever had that life experience, that's it. You're done forevermore. The census is about getting funding for fixing the roads and bridges. So that's another door that you as a census ambassador to your community can walk through to get that buy-in from someone, right? So everybody's got their door. Some of them are fiscal and some of them are social and some of them are tied to issues we care about. And we're going to talk a little later about how to get people to walk through the door. But what we need now, before we go that far, is a little bit better understanding of the picture that the Federal Census Bureau has created for us on how to get this work done. So we know every 10 years we're doing a census. And we know there is a Census Bureau. It's Federal Bureau of Census, right? They do their thing and they do it all the time. We think about them every 10 years, they get real popular every 10 years. But really, they are doing this work every day. There are lots and lots of people all over the country who are doing the work of creating this, what we're going to do, the census this year. They're creating it all the time, and they are using the very best statistical models and analysis and data collection and analysis techniques. They're using the latest scientific studies and sociological studies and budgetary studies and all of the different aspects of our country that people live and do. They study every one of them to make sure that what they're asking for is going to create a product, a census statistical piece of information that can be utilized by each of those people who contributed. So when we think, there's, the census and you have to put your name on it and your address and then it's got to be mailed to my house and I fill it out and how hard is that? And that's not 10 years worth of planning. And I promise you it is. And we are disrespectful to our fellow citizens and neighbors and countrymen who put all of 10 years worth of work into creating what we're going to work with now if we underestimate how much care and thought went in every day to creating this year's census. And we're going to learn and do the best we can on this one. And hopefully they'll spend 10 years taking all of the information they learn about what they learned about Americans through the census, but also what they learned about our process of the census, right? And they will make it even better 10 years from now, right? So one of the things that has been really popular is computers. They've grown in popular use in the last 10 years, and of course the years and years before. And everybody's going, yeah, I know, I've got one in my pocket, and I've silenced it. Maybe I didn't, right? But it's not a gimme. It's not a given that computers would have been part of the census. They had to make that decision, and a lot of planning went into how to do that. And we're at that year. We weren't 10 years ago, and 10 years before that. Computers existed then too, but they weren't to the point where computers could play a part in everybody's everyday, to where we could incorporate census and technology the way we're going to do this time. And it's brand new. This is the first year. You can go online and fill out your census. So what they said is, federal government, people putting together a census, couple of questions, name, address, right? That's a really big distance between the federal government and everybody else. Luckily, we usually have layers. We're used to layers, right? We've got you, and then there's your town, then there's your township, then there's your county, then there's your state, then there's your region, and then there's your federal government. So wonderful. There's lots of layers of government that can help take care of us, right? Yeah, usually. Not this time. Not this time. This time it's you and your data going right into the Census Bureau. So, to make sure that the relationship between each person's data, that which they're responsible for, and the Census Bureau's work of creating all these lovely statistics, to make sure that that actually happens, because the farther away you get from where your data goes, the less you're likely to care, right? We know that happens. The Census Bureau put a lot of thought over the last 10 years and longer into how to improve our system. And what they realize is that the strongest vehicle, the number one way to get people to participate in anything, not just the census, anything, is each other. That love you have for your family, there's nothing that beats it. The love you have for your community, for the organizations you belong to, for your school district that you absolutely tell everybody it's the greatest one, right? For your church you've been a member of for years and years, and you're so proud. Every organization that you connect yourself to and say, I'm a part of this. That love that keeps you going back to that group, and the fact that that group is roots deep in your community, makes that network the most powerful advocate, really, for anything. So the census is tapping into it. And I know it sounds kind of corny, but they're tapping into your heart. And if we recognize that and we run with it, that's what they're counting on to make this successful. So the Census Bureau is going to send you a census form, and you're supposed to fill it out. And there's no layers in between, officially. But they know that doesn't work. So there's a recommendation. There's a lovely recommendation. I think it's awesome. Which, again, I'm jazzed about the census and all the parts of it, so I'm likely to like it. But I went and I looked at the toolkit, and I looked at the website, and I poked around everywhere. And I love that what they did was they said, you're going to need a network of local networks. And they're calling that your Complete Count Commission. But of course, some people call it the Local Count Commission or the Local Complete Count or whatever. So a lot of it's just CCC or LCC. And if you see those initials anywhere, that often is what it's talking about. But what that is the Census Bureau's recommendation that at the municipal level, because everybody belongs to a municipality, or if they don't, if they live in an unincorporated, their life is in other governmental ways tied to a municipality. So you'll cover everybody by covering the geography, right? They said each municipality forming a Complete Count Commission, which is a collection of well-connected, deep-rooted volunteers in the community who will work together to make sure that that particular community, with its very particular needs, they will get a complete count. Rather than somebody coming from the Bureau and trying to do all the work from out of state, somebody from another part of the state that doesn't know your town, somebody that doesn't know, oh yeah, that you don't want to cross that bridge when the weather's bad. You want people who really live where you live to be the ones to do the work of reaching out to their neighbors. And so that's where the Complete Count Commission comes in. So our other guests that are here tonight, they're going to give you a heads up on what's happening with your local Complete Count, which of course many of you are already participating in some fashion, or you already know about. But if you don't, they'll give you the heads up. Just to let you know, there was a little bit of drama about where the money was going to come from to do the census work in Illinois. And there's been a little bit of other drama up in the federal government land, getting the census going in the direction it needed to go to as fast as it needed to get there. So everybody kind of has the feeling that's been working on the census for a little while of like, I think we're a little behind schedule, but I'm here to tell you that when it comes right down to it, we can do this. We can totally do this. We're going to have to make it important, and we're going to have to do it quickly in the next couple months, but we can totally support our local Complete Count Commissions and the local Complete Count Commissions that are near us, right? We can do that and get this work done because the foundational structure is that we make it important, and then we reach out to the people who we love and who we're connected to and encourage them to do the same. And I think we'll catch everybody that way, so we'll see. We'll talk numbers and some other stuff, and we're going to go into workshop mode after we have two other guests that'll give what our local is doing, right? Okay, so who wants to go first? Okay, Joanne, it's all yours.
Well, thank you very much. I am Joanne Zillman. I'm the Deputy Director and the Youth Services Manager at the Batavia Public Library. And I'm here tonight actually as the co-chair of our Batavia Counts Committee. Yes, Batavia does have a Complete Counts Committee. I do want to thank the League of Women Voters for inviting me to come here tonight to talk about Batavia Counts. And you can see our nice little logo over on the poster over there. Batavia Counts is indeed a partnership between community agencies, organizations, and individuals with the purpose of educating, promoting, and encouraging Batavia residents to participate in the 2020 census. Initiated by the Batavia Public Library with the City of Batavia, other partners now include Batavia TV, BATV, the League of Women Voters, the School District, the Batavia Park District, Chamber of Commerce, the Ministerial Council, and our own Interfaith Food Pantry, and the list of partners continues to grow. Batavia Counts is not about going to door and being a census taker. If you're interested in getting a census job, you need to talk to one of our census workers or check out the Census 2020 website. What Batavia Counts is, it's about sharing information about the census and why it is so important for every Batavia household to complete the census. Between now and Census Day, which is April 1st, yes, April Fool's Day. I'm not exactly sure who thought that was a great, funny joke to do April Fool's Day, but that'll be a date that is remembered. Batavia Counts partners will participate in disseminating information about the census, will educate and encourage participation in the census, and will ensure that all Batavia households have the opportunity to complete the census. In 1790, 650 men on horseback traveled door to door around the original 13 states to gather information for the first U.S. Census. Thankfully, today's technology and multiple ways to complete the census will make it far easier to respond to the census. If you're interested in learning more about the local importance of a complete census count and becoming a Batavia Counts partner, I would invite you to join us tomorrow night, November 14th, at the Batavia Library at 7 p.m., where we will be having a Complete Counts partnership meeting. I count, you count, Batavia counts. We hope that everyone is counted in Batavia on April 1st. Thank you.
And now Mo Iqbal will tell us what's happening in Kane County.
Okay, good. Everything okay. Yeah. My name is Mo Iqbal. I serve on the county board. And I'm the chair of the Kane County Complete Count Commission. How I got involved with it is totally strange, but I am now into it, and I feel that it's the right cause. Why it is important? I think the speakers have told us that it is about power and it's about money. And the power and the money come from the U.S. government. We have House of Representatives that room has 436 seats. And as the population is growing, every 10 years is counted, and the state that has more population gets more chairs in there. And every chair means a lot of money. And because $990 billion is given away or granted to different states just based on the population. So more we count, more grants we get. And at county level or the other local governmental level, every dollar counts. Oh, okay, I'm doing it this one. Either way, okay. Let's review what happened in 2010. Illinois did not do very well in 2010 counting. It was a very grave situation. There was so much undercounting. For example, in Cook County, 1 million people were left out. 1 million, just Cook County. And Kane County didn't do very well either. We had 81% people counted. So the counted people were only 515,000, and the uncounted were 97,000. Even though we know they were uncounted, but on the books they don't count. So we don't get any grants or any contribution from the federal government for the 97,000, but the county residents pay for their benefits. In terms of dollars, the loss because of this undercounting was $176 million per year to the county, and that means the entire county. And if you consider 1% undercounting, that means $9 million per year loss in grant to the county. So if we can raise this year from 81 to say 82 or 85, we will be getting tens of millions of dollars more in funding. And these are the people who really need the funding, children in the school who need that lunch money, the seniors, and so forth, and homeless. And so the solution is to increase the count. And there are two kinds of it. Number one, self-response count, self-response rate, people who will get the letter and send it back, or they go to the computer in their home and they will respond. That's called self-response. But there are people who don't have a computer at home, they don't have internet at home, some of them don't have home. And those are the people who need help. We call them hard to count. That's the term. If you want to take one term home, hard to count is the term. That's the population that we want to concentrate on and help and make them participate. So this hard to count communities, who are they? They are generally racial and ethnic minorities, non-white, just like me, non-English speaking people, undocumented, low-income people, homeless, disabled, rural population, highly mobile people like students, military, high-density developer like apartment buildings, housing, public housing, and the children, mostly the parents would not count little children. They say, we don't have time, he is too tiny or whatever, but they count. It matters. This summer, Kane County Complete Count Commission was formed. The board passed the resolution, and I was appointed the chair. As you know, in Kane County, we have 30 communities. We have 5 cities and 25 villages. 2 cities are large, Aurora and Elgin, and they have their own complete count commissions, and they got the grants, and they are very, very sophisticated, and they are working very well. But the others don't have that capability, and they don't have the sophistication. So we need to help them. And the goal is to provide platform for their training, awareness, bring them in a room where they can network. We have to find the trusted people. The hard to count people generally don't want to be counted. They don't trust the government. So we have to find individuals who they can trust. So that's the part of the networking, so get the trusted people on board. And we have applied for the grant. We started it in summer. We went through different channels. The state had a first installments of grant, $29 million, and the second installment is another one, $20 million. And what the state decided was that they would not deal with every individual county, every CCC. They rather have what is called regional intermediary. Like if you want to have get the grant and give it to the subsidiaries or a subrecipient. So we went with this organization called RAILS. RAIL is a Reach Across Illinois library system. This is a system of 800 libraries. And librarians, we know, are very passionate about counting, and they deal with that population who needs help. And we learned it from Elgin Library. They are so helpful. And we applied through RAILS, and the RAIL is a regional intermediary, and we are subrecipient. We have not yet received the final approval, but we are going to get it within days. But we have been working. Even there's no grant, I have been still participating in the activities. And to administer the grant, we have the law library, Kane County Law Library. The librarian is Helly Cox, and she would be the administrator. And I would be the committee chair, and we will have 2 coordinators for the county-wide activities, one for the northern side and one for the southern. For the northern side, we were able to find a person who is a retired outreach officer, Sherry Murphy. She's excellent, and she has started work. But for the southern part, we are still looking. So if you know people who would like to help, it's a paid job. The committee would pay. As we hope to get the money, and we will pay. We are creating a website. The website will have the videos that we are getting from U.S. Census Bureau, and we are having coordinators, and we are having our training workshop. The first training workshop would be next month on the 11th in the government building. We are inviting all the mayors, the city managers, and the civic leaders, and anyone else who wants to help. We are looking for the religious leaders. They are the people who are trusted the most. School districts. And this will be 2-hour workshop. I feel 2-hour we can't call it workshop because it's not a breakout groups. There would be a 90-minute presentation by Jenicol Johnson of Census Bureau. And we are started getting questions. What is it like? What is the new questionnaire like? So we downloaded the new questionnaire and I sent it to the board members and I started getting the question. They see difficulty people going from line 1 to line 2. But those are the things we have to face. That's why this is called hard to count. And we will be discussing that, how we can have more people respond by themselves, how we can help those who cannot respond by themselves, what are do's and what are don'ts. We cannot fill it out for everyone. We can help them, and how much can we help them, what are our limits. Those are the things that will be explained in there. The workshop would be in Geneva, the government center, Building A. I will send an invitation over to Jean, and she can distribute to the membership. Getting counted, we started, as I said, we started a long time ago, and this is a photo from 4th of July parade. I am here, and Laura is in there. Laura is sitting there. And this little photo, actually, I did not pay too much attention, but as I was looking, it shows the diversity and inclusion of the community. It's a young people, it has older people, men, women, white, black, brown, every kind of a diversity and inclusion in that little picture. And we did not actually, and the Spider-Man, which is also part of the culture. So we are working hard, and I invite all of you to attend that workshop. It will be quite an educational experience, and I'm excited about it. In the summary, this is a write-up if you would like to know, what's going to be. I have this thing, but I will not go over it. That it will be a practical workshop. Do's and don'ts, or what do you do? And in the summary, I must say it again that it matters. It's about power, it's about money, both in a positive sense. To be counted for their future, our children's future, and the community. And reach out to the hard to count. If you want to take one word home, it's hard to count. We are active, even though we didn't get the grant, but we are working on it. And I will invite all of you to get involved. Yeah.
Well, you were listing hard to count. You didn't mention seniors. I heard them. Are they not other communities?
Seniors, definitely, yeah. Seniors, yeah. I did. You didn't. It was there or it was not there. Let me see if I can go back and. Yes, it was not listed, but I know it. I'm a senior, so I know. Okay, thank you.
So when we get into the workshop portion here, before we get started, I want to hit a couple more nuts and bolts about CCCs. And remembering that the Federal Census Bureau, with all of their research and all of the data and the hard work and heart and passion that went into creating the census experience that we're about to have or participate in or create, right? One of the things that they decided was that it was these grassroots groups in every community. The churches, the schools, the Rotary Club, the Boy Scouts, everybody who already lives there knows one another, that their networks overlap with one another. They were the best positioned scientifically to do the work of making sure we get a complete count. So we know the reasons why we do it. We do it because it's in the Constitution. We know the reasons why it's important because it gets us our congressional districts and our legislative districts, and it gets us funding for schools and hospitals and roads. But it's also an important civic engagement thing to help people feel connected to one another in their community. And that creating a sense of community for every person who lives there is just as valid as a reason to do this, do it well, and do it together, right? So, me with my love motivation right there. Grow your community and your sense of community and your passion and your connection to one another and your connection to those other parts of what makes our communities great and special and unique. Use the census as a way to highlight those and the work that you're doing in these groups that you're working in. So everybody's got their sheet by now. We're done passing papers. All right, so turn to the side that's got the table and the people. And this is what the Census Bureau's recommendation is. This is essentially the table your municipality is asked to create. Now, as you've heard from our other speakers, some CCCs are not a town. They're a county or a collection of towns and villages. Some of them are quite a bit larger than that. Most states have CCCs, regions have CCCs, regions of states have CCCs. And of course, in the city of Chicago, they don't just do one CCC for the city. It's too many people, and it's not going to have that real network connection that's necessary to have this work being done by volunteers. And I'd like to hit on one more piece of this whole puzzle, and it's really fun door to walk through for people who are fiscally motivated, right? I tend to come at things from that, how is this going to grow my community's love of one another type of a hat. That's the one I put on, right? But there are other people who say, okay, so you're telling me we have to spend federal money to figure out how to count everybody, then spend federal money to go and get everybody counted so we can figure out how to spend federal money. That's a lot of spending federal money. My money that I sent to Washington is getting spent on how to figure out how to spend my money, right? So for those people, that door, and this is a reasonable budgetary thing to ask anybody to think about, even those of us who are motivated by, love and schools and hospitals and kids programs and that kind of thing. The thing is, if the government sends you a postcard in early March, which is their plan, they're going to send you one right to your house and say, go online. Here is your personal URL just for you. Go online, put in this code, fill out your census, right? And then you don't do it. So a couple weeks later, they have to send you a letter and an email. And a couple weeks after that, they've got people calling. And then the main portion of time when we want people to be filling out their census, which is from mid to early March to late April, right? That's the basic 6-week window when we want this work to be done, centering on April 1st. You didn't get it done in that time period, so now they're going to send somebody to walk to your house and knock on your door, but you weren't there, so they'll have to come back another day. And another day, and another day, and every one of the people who does the phone calls and the emails and the letters and the walking up to your door several times to try to find you, to ask you to please, would you fill this out? They're getting paid, which is great. It's wonderful that those people get a paycheck and do a job and help our country. But if you're interested in reducing government waste, let's not have them have to ask you 15 times for your homework, right? So you fill out your census and you do it online, which saves a tree and gets it done sooner rather than later. So there's not somebody at the Bureau going, oh, we're only at 50% response rate and we're already halfway through our 6-week window. It's April 2nd. We want it to be done by now, right? You're making these people nervous. They've been studying these numbers for 10 years. They know exactly who's reported and who hasn't. And they know exactly which parts of their communities are going to need more work and going to need more door knocking. So if those parts of their community, which they're expecting high returns early, don't produce them and don't produce them online, thereby getting the data very speedy up to the Census Bureau where people can calm down because they're getting their data, right? You're going to be making these people nervous and you're going to have to spend more money to get them. It's just a waste of everybody's time and money. So that's, again, another door you can walk through with somebody if you want to talk about fiscal waste. It's a big waste of time to have somebody knock on your door when you got an email. That's it. Fill out your census, right? So you've got your paper and you can see that there are seats at the table, and the Census Bureau says this, you know what? As long as you get this work done, we don't really care how you do it. That's the bottom line, right? That's the short answer for the John Q. public like myself. So What they want is at the municipal level, the highest elected official, which is usually a mayor or a village president or something like that. That person is officially, the chairperson of the table of the complete count committee, right? And that person can designate someone else. So in my town, there's about 16,000 people. It's a very different complete count commission experience than a county that's got 2 big cities and 25 villages, right? So Kane County as a whole, their complete count commission's got to be structured entirely differently. But in my little town with 16,000 people, they can fill each of those chairs pretty much by word of mouth. And then they just have to make sure that the people sitting in each of those other chairs, the ones who represent contacts with the hospital, contacts with the school district, contacts with the mental health community, contact with the aging in our community, contact with the homeless in our community. If they've got somebody from our community sitting in each one of those chairs and each one of those people has a couple of partners or subcommittees on their own, that structure works great for LaGrange. That works great for my area. For the Kane County, they're going to fill those same chairs. But each one of those chairs is much more likely to have subcommittees and more people that, again, when it all really comes back down to it, the real work of making sure that those hard to count communities, who are hard to count for very different reasons from one another, that there's going to be some personal touch in reaching out to them. Because it is the librarians in our community who have a tendency to come across certain segments of our towns, certain people from our town who might be on that hard to count list for one reason or another. And it is the people from our homeless shelters who are going to have a better sense of how to enumerate the homeless and whether or not this person was just here on April 1st or they're always here. Or maybe they used to be here and now I haven't seen them in a while. So let's make sure they're counted. And they're going to reach out to their counterparts in other communities and say, hey, have you guys seen Joe? Yeah, let's make sure we get him counted too, right? And that's a personal conversation that happens among neighbors. And it'll be done officially and according to how things are supposed to be done. But we, as the everyday citizens, we don't have to worry about that so long as there is a municipal complete count commission and these chairs are filled. So, as leaguers, or I dub you all honorary leaguers for this evening if you're here and you haven't joined the league yet. And if you want to, make sure you fill out your email before you go, right? So as leaguers, our job is not necessarily to go knocking door to door. As you heard, you can get paid for that. You don't wear your league hat when you do it. You go work for the Census Bureau. You take your oath, which is good for a lifetime, says you can't ever tell anybody what you learned from somebody's census form, right? A lifetime oath, that's a pretty big deal. You go and then you get paid to do whatever work they want you to do. That's not what our leaguers are going to do. Our leaguers are going to figure out what is your league best suited to do, partnering with your complete count commission. So you're going to take from your complete count commission your marching orders, but what you're going to bring in to your complete count commission as a leaguer is whatever your league has to offer. So if you've got a lot of members who are hot to work on this, or who would be available to work on it for March and April, especially for February, March, and April, then you'll focus what you as a league design to fit the needs of your local complete count commission. And that's going to vary depending on whose commission you belong to. So I would like to advocate for there being 3 really important chairs at that table you've got. One is your commissioner. You've got to have somebody who is a strong point person, who is willing to do the work, take the questions, work with others, take in the ideas, and help make sure that they get carried out, right? So your chairperson for your complete count committee. And believe it or not, that is a really big ask. There are lots of communities that are going, oh, we don't really need one because we had a decent response rate and our little community's not orange on the big map on the Census Bureau website. So I guess we're fine. We'll just let people, ain't good enough. If you're a leaguer, you're calling your city hall and you're asking, who's my complete count commission chairperson? Great. And you're going to know that, right? And you want to know when their next meeting is. And you want to know if you can sit in the chair, the other one at the table, that says civic organization leader, right? So the other person on that table that's really, really important, besides the chairperson, making sure that there is a complete count commission and that they're doing their job. The next one down, who I think is one of the most crucial resources, is your librarian, or the person from the library who's been designated to represent the library, because it is the physical representation of the census in your community. Not officially, maybe. It depends on how they want to self-define. And the government didn't say to them, you officially are the location of census for your community. That does not happen. But if you need to use a public computer to fill out a form, The library is going to have it in most communities, right? And so the people at the library are going to be the ones they're taking on the work of dealing with all of the people with various needs and questions and different wants, right, at their location. So knowing how you can support the librarian or the library representative on your complete commission, that's another good neighbor thing you can do. The third most important person on your table of people there might be you, might be the leaguer. Just because that's the person you control. The only person you can actually make fill out their form is you. And the only person who can actually bring positive energy to your complete count commission at the local level on behalf of the League of Women Voters is you. So those are my top 3 at that table. The rest are also important, and working together is what the quality of that working togetherness is what gets the work done well. So now it's workshop time. So I'd like to know, does anybody have any burning questions they've got to know before we start making action plans? Because we don't want to leave here and just say, oh, that was nice. I learned about the census, which, come to think of it, I already knew was going to happen, which is why I showed up in the first place. Not good enough. You got to leave here with work to do. You're leaving here with marching orders, but we have to tailor them to your needs and your community, and we're going to work on that for the rest of our time. So does anybody have anything else they need to know before we get started on that portion? Yeah. Yeah. So the question for the microphone was, what about undocumented persons and their incentive to fill out the form? Well, based on public conversation over the last couple of months to couple of years regarding census and undocumented, it sounds to me like a lot of people don't have a motivation. They have a motivation to stay as far away as they can. They've been made afraid. And this is where your love comes in. I am not kidding about this cheesy love stuff. It motivates a lot of good things. So reaching out to the portions of your community or the individual people that you can touch their lives and they touch yours, and you are their trusted person, or you could be, to say, the census can be safe for you. Let me tell you how. And if you don't believe me, let me help connect you with somebody else who can know for you. The census does not create a list of names, addresses, and who lives where. The census removes your name from your data for 75 years. Did y'all know that? Fun stuff. How do you study people if you don't put all the data together? The statistics are what they're actually after. What the census is creating is a statistical picture of people within a geography. That's how they make those fair maps. That's how they decide how much money to give you for your road, your bridge, your school. Right? It's not about what many people are afraid of, which is my name, my address, my status is undocumented. Boom, I'm targeted. It's illegal to do that. Yeah.
Another thing that I've heard is undocumented people are really encouraged to buy a computer because then nobody can hear that their voice sounds see that they also so important.
So when we get into the portion where we're actually making plans tonight, but also with working with your CCC, knowing whether or not you have undocumented people within your community and knowing what their specific needs are going to be, maybe what they need is somebody who speaks their language, who already lives there, who's willing to learn about the census and come and talk to them about it. Because maybe they don't want to hear from you. Maybe they want to hear from someone they already know and trust. And maybe they need their census given to them in a language that they already speak. And it can be printed, or you can do a phone census in, I think it's like 52 languages, something like this, plus Braille, right? So there are ways in which you can help people to see, if they bothered to print this in your language, and someone's going to come and talk to your community in the language you prefer about all these details and answer your questions about the census. If that's what it takes to get buy-in from that segment of a community, it's the CCC's job to facilitate it happening. And you could be the advocate for that. Yeah? Who else has got questions? Correct. It's the fear around the media conversation and then our conversations with one another about whether or not that would be done. And do you know why it didn't end up there? Does anybody know? Because there wasn't time to adequately test and prove that it would create a better response rate. Remember that the job of the census is to find out how many people are here. But if you ask a question either in a way that, or a question by itself that prevents people from having buy-in to the census, and they say, well, I'm not going to participate in that, you won't get your count. You know, it's like if you only print the forms in English, you won't get a complete census. You have to print them in other languages. That's the scientific way to get buy-in from people who speak something else, right? So that's an important point. Anybody else have any questions? Yeah. Yeah. So every complete count and several regions have different ways in which they're going to tackle this, and some of them are really interesting, but we can't go into all those. But I'll tell you some quick facts, okay? One, there's a reason why the census is April 1st, first date, because sometimes you weren't born yet, because you were born the day before, and sometimes you were born on that day, but you weren't brought home yet, so you're actually living in a hospital. And so the whole, like, how do you count people if you were pregnant during this census, but it's 6 weeks long, but I got my postcard late, and then pick a day. They picked April 1st. And for the people who have really high contact with persons in particular hard to count communities like the homeless, the local groups who work with those populations the most will come up with the best approach for the population that they know and know the names of people, have relationships with, and know where to find. But generally what many places do is they'll pick a 3-day window, and they pick, I think is it 28, 29, and 1st, or sorry, 29, 30, and 1st, but they will count within that portion of time and then sort of cross-check their lists with one another. Or in other communities, what they'll do is they say whoever was sleeping in your shelter or walking the streets or driving the streets at night, sleeping where you know they're sleeping, on the night of waking up on the 1st, that's your count. Right. So, and there really is quite a bit of variety in how that's counted, because how you count populations of homeless people in Chicago is very different than, you know, in Johnsonville, middle of nowhere. Right. Right. So,
A lot of people that are
right.
I want to make sure that
So you'll need to check with your exact municipality and complete count commission as to how they want that counted. I mean, I wish I could answer it for you, but it is actually very different from community to community. Mm-hmm. Yep. Who else has got questions before we work? All right. Then, I'd like to see which municipalities are represented here tonight. I want to know the town where you live. So I don't know enough about your geography to start listing all the towns, but let's start with Batavia. Anybody live in Batavia? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, thank you. What other towns live here? You got Geneva, Batavia. How many Genevas we got? We have 4 Genevas. Okay, who else? Couple of St. Charles. How many other St. Charleses? Are you the only one? Oh, I'm glad you're here. Okay, what other municipalities are represented here? Camden Hills. Okay, you got 1 or 2? Or are there 2 of you? You're the only one too. I'm glad you're here. And you're on the CCC. Good. Okay, who else? Alton? Elgin. Okay. Anybody else from Elgin? We got 2 Elgins. That's right. All right. Anybody else who did not yet tell me their town? Where are you from? Okay. Good. All right. Then who were my 2 popular towns? It was Batavia and St. Charles? Okay. So, Batavia and Geneva. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Geneva. That was 5 for Geneva. I'm going to have Geneva go over there to that table. And I'd like to have, what was the other one? St. Charles? Batavia was the other popular one? Let's have you take this one. Okay? And everybody else, you can go wherever you like and be an honorary member of that working group for tonight. Because if we have only one person at a table, it's harder to workshop. It's very lonely. It's very lonely. So,
You don't want the others to
no, let's just make, well, we could. It might make more intimate groups. Let's try that then. So, who's back here, did I say? So, Geneva is there. Take your chair if you don't have one. And Batavia is there. Take your chair if you don't have one. And then everybody else, I'm going to have you maybe over at this one and take your chair because there aren't any there. And I'm going to come around and give you guys some worksheets. And then after you say hi to each other and chitty chat and get your wiggles out, then I'm going to walk you through it and then you're going to work.